Pitching. That is what has been moving the market. We're going to talk a little about pitching, get into the news and rumors of the day, and also discuss, who are some players who are making a little more cash today than they were when the week began, all on today's episode of Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Guardians. I want to thank you for making Locked On Guardians your first listen today and every day wherever you get podcasts. I want to take a quick moment here at the start and say, we didn't know how monetization worked. We got an email about halfway through Friday. So if you're like, oh, I'm not watching again, or I'm just going to see if yes, there were too many ads. From now on, there's like 3 ad breaks in the middle of a show. Like where the typical ad breaks occur, that's where they are. We are pre-programming them in. I went through and did the last 5 episodes. I want to address this before we do anything else because it was excessive. I agree. If you thought that way or felt that way, we didn't know. We had no idea what was going to happen. Not to like put the blame on anyone else. They should have told us before I think they didn't realize that we were actually monetized until we were monetized. So I'll take a moment and apologize. I also posted here on the YouTube. So if you're following, I put a post up on Saturday about it. I just wanted to put that on Front Street. Yes, there are ads. It's helpful for us. We are not a big show, but we want to apologize for that. I want to take the moment and introduce myself, the things that people hate, but we're supposed to do. I'm Jeff Ellis. I am a Christmas aholic. I am wearing a Bumble shirt, as my daughter and I refer to him as. And I have the house fully decorated outside in all of its splendor. Maybe I'll do a video, a short from out there at some point. If you want to see a baseball short outside of a very gaudy Christmas display, comment below.
I'm Justin Latta. I don't have a lot of Christmas stuff in my basement. This is mostly just a sports cave. Maybe one of these days I'll take my camera and I'll rearrange and show all my baseball / sports stuff once I get it all in an order I like. But there's stuff back there. You can see the banners and there's other stuff I can show eventually. But yeah, I'm not famous, but I tweet a lot. Maybe that's where people know me from. And that's why I write places, because I tweeted a lot and I convinced a lot of people that I knew a lot about baseball. So that's who I am.
I was, this is not what we planned to talk about, but it was kind of interesting. I don't know. I was, as it always is, because I am obsessed with Christmas and it's this time of year and I'm that annoying person who likes to watch Christmas things. I come by it honestly. My dad is, 70 and lives on the Hallmark Channel. I know that's not, traditionally where a lot of people go for that, and it's not where I go, but my dad loves it, so it's just in the blood. And I was watching Christmas Story because, of course, my grandma introduced it to me. It's got all the things in Cleveland she liked. It's near and dear, but it made me think about media back then and what it must be like to wake. I was reading some article that was talking about, I can't remember what it was, but it was one of those things where it's like, oh, Cleveland should get mentioned in this, and then they got no mention. I was like, oh yeah. Back when you had TV and radio, you really had to lean on that local person to give you perspective beyond anything, because especially if you were a Cleveland fan, I imagine it had to be terrible. If you wanted to listen to, even when I was a kid in the 80s, it's unless you're listening to local sports talk, you probably never heard Cleveland get talked about for large chunks. So I don't know. I just want to take a moment and appreciate the world we live in where you can get a daily Cleveland Guardians podcast. That being said, also comment below favorite Christmas movies. Let me see if there's ones I have not seen. I will let you know if you found one that I have not watched. We're gonna get those comments rolling. I want to talk about money. We all like money to some degree or another, and even if you're that's a very gaudy thing to say, let's be honest, none of us wants to be poor. But Emmanuel, Clase, Andres Gimenez,
not poor,
Triston McKenzie, and Stephen Kwan all got bonuses. Clase got $1,354,962. I love how specific it is. And Andres Gimenez got $1,308,805. Number one bonus went to Dylan Cease, Jordan Alvarez, Alec Manea, Zach Allen, Julio Rodriguez, Michael Harris, and the 2 Guardians guys. McKenzie and Kwan each get $500K. This comes from that general fund, the pre-arb arbitration where it's $50 million set in a pool. So then that gets split up by percentages. I don't know the specifics, but clearly by percentages with how very specific that money went to the top 10 guys. And so it's about 3.6 million. So technically the Guardians payroll is going to be 3.6 million higher without anything coming out of their front offices, out of the ownership's pocket. So that is paid from that pool. So that's like a free bonus to those guys. And you might be like, hey, Clase signed a contract. So did Harris and so did Julio. This money is on top of any contract that's been signed. They get this no matter what. So that is just additional money for all of them. It's I imagine a nice holiday bonus for those players. 500,000 as maybe I shouldn't say it. It gets people triggered when you say this, but I'm like, as a teacher, I could get there in 8 to 9 years with my master's degree. So, obviously I can't do what any of these guys can do. And I'm not saying this to belittle or shame anyone, but, it stands out. It's interesting. Honestly, it's the only real news that included the Guardians over the past weekend was these bonuses. So we should point it out. It does, in a way, allow them to inflate their salary a little in terms of books, because, again, it comes from a general pool. They're not paying for it. So it's $3.6 million that doesn't come out of anyone's pocket. I think they had to pay into the general fund at the start of the year. I'm not sure exactly how that goes with the new thing, but I thought that was interesting. Something of note.
Is Justin, that who pays into the fund? Is it each team?
Let's see.
Or each team is responsible. I feel like all last offseason when the lockout was going on, we were all trying to follow every story and how things were going to work. And then now the year later, when we're not worried about that and the money's flowing from other teams, we've kind of forgotten how things in the CBA have decided to work.
Okay. I found it. Each team will be paid out the bonuses by December 23rd. So it really is like getting them their money by Christmas. That's going to be the theme, I guess, of today's show, but they will be reimbursed by the commissioner's office. So teams have to pay it. And then it's like, why am I blanking on?
Well, ultimately, how does the fund get fed? That's my question.
So it's from Major League Baseball itself. It's like the money that like the Major League, the $8 billion in profits they made a few years ago. They're giving 50 million of that.
I thought baseball was dying, Jeff. What the heck?
It's a
dying sport. Owners are broke.
That it makes billions of dollars every year.
But the owners are
broke.
It's not profitable to run a baseball franchise.
No.
That's the Reds. That's the Pirates.
It's a thing too. Like I saw a lot of Reds fans that got mad about like telling their owner to sell the team when they lost the draft lottery. I'm like, there's a lot of reasons, starting with their owner's son's statements before last season to be angry and want to get rid of the Reds ownership. Losing the draft lottery, you can't put that on them, though. It's just
another kicking in other regions.
Yeah, it is. But yeah, no, it is always fine to me. And it's like, even if you lose money owning a team, you can always be like the Dolans who, bought this team for $250 million and are probably going to end up selling it for $1.25 billion. So if nothing else, it's like putting your money in a bank and getting a return on investment in under 20 years of $1 billion. So I think the owners are doing okay. Maybe a little bit. I
have yet to see a team sold for a loss. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no team has been sold for a loss. And the only owner in my lifetime who could somehow not make money off their sport was Art Modell. But that's another story for another time.
Boy.
He will always be a villain in my tales. Don't comment below if you're going to try to push anything else. I was in eighth grade watching the Iron Man cartoon in the mid 90s when it got interrupted to tell me my football team was leaving. That is going to always be a memory I remember from now until the end of time.
My small appreciation, this is Brown specific and not Guardian specific, so we should move on quickly, but I appreciate Art Modell for moving the team, because now I don't waste my time every Sunday getting mad at the Browns like that. I'm totally lost. I don't care. I can care about baseball all day, but I have the fact that the Browns never existed. Now they stink. I don't waste my time with football, I don't waste my time getting mad about football, which is good. But I did want to ask you too, real quick, this bonus pool, does this help or hurt the Guardians' chances of extending any of these guys? They already have Clase extended, but I guess Gimenez and Kwan and McKenzie. I would say it hurts, because anytime that and the money is good for these guys, obviously good, because they've earned it, no doubt, and the money is there to pay them. But this gives them more of a chance to bet on themselves and not take extensions. So I think in a weird way, it's even better for the players, bad for the Guardians extending them. unfortunately.
If you look at Clase, I don't know what his signing bonus was, but one of the reasons they probably were able to sign him to that extension was that he didn't have a big bonus, and these guys can make nothing in the minors, make less than a living wage down there. So, for them they don't have them over a barrel anymore. So yeah, it might be easier to be like, hey, I'm just going to pace myself to free agency. I think it does kind of hurt them a little bit in the long run.
It gets them to arb,
but yeah, it gets them to, and it gets them to kind of being arbitration before they're at arbitration, and they're no nope, that's not the word I want. I hesitate to say like league minimum. Once they get to the big leagues, they're fine. In the minors, it's nothing. But once you're in the big leagues, it's an entirely different story. So it's like, it's 500,000. I don't know if that's a huge boat, like if that's going to push Steven Kwan for signing extension or not, because his salary last year was more than 500,000. But when it's someone like Clase or Gimenez, where they're getting like 1.3, I think that could separate. Speaking of money, I hate to cut you off here. I know people hate when that happens. I am going to say that it's time for one of the fantastic commercial breaks to keep this show going. And our first sponsor of the day is one of our longtime sponsors, and those are the good people over at Bet Online. And you know the story of Bet Online, but I want to go and pull up the specific odds that I got recently in the mail from our friends over at Bet Online, talking about some of the odds on stats for next year. Jacob deGrom, and I want you to tell me if you want to go over under on these, okay? So this is going to be a work together one. Jacob deGrom, 2.75 ERA for the regular season, over or under?
Under.
I would agree with you on that one. Starts, 26.5.
Under.
Yeah, I'm jumping on that one. That's the best one to me. I would definitely. Strikeouts, 225.5.
Oh, under.
Yeah. I feel like these are almost being too generous. So if you're a fan, you might want to go. Wins, 11.
Under.
Yeah, he's with the Rangers. Verlander, ERA, 2.95.
Under. It was under 2. It was under 2 last year. Yeah.
Yeah. Strikeouts, 200.5.
I'll go over for Verlander. He was healthy last year.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm tempted to go under just due to age. And then wins, 13.
The Mets off. The Mets, I don't know. I'm going to say over. Slight. I mean, I could see 14 for him.
Yeah, I think that's the one I feel better about saying over. But if any of those stood out to you, go check out our friends at Bet Online today. So we are back, and one of the big stories, I would butcher his name. Cody Senga was, I think, the only free agent of note that I can think of that signed. Another starting pitcher. To some people, a surprising amount of money. It's interesting how many people I saw say it surprised them with how high and others with how low. I don't think he's necessarily an ace type, if I'm being honest. I think there is some reliever risk, but I think there's a chance for a solid mid-rotation starter. But at the same time, I thought Ohtani was going to be a DH and closer. So what do I know? But I think what is interesting with these two recent contracts for these Japanese players is how much they are paying for risk. Like Seiya Suzuki, to me, was a much better prospect than the gentleman who signed with Boston, and he got less money. And these have been kind of big contracts for the risk. 5 years, $75 million, and you're like, oh, well, $15 million is about going right for mid-rotation, but he also got an opt-out after 2025, so you can go out there and get more money. Like those opt-outs in some ways are are bad for a club if a guy's effective, because I mean they are just bad for a club, because if they're bad, they don't take them, and if they're good, they leave you. So this pitching market, what are you thinking? Do you think there's still a lot of names left in it? Are there too many names for Cleveland to maybe take advantage of this market with their starting pitching?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't know. I mean, obviously there's I shouldn't say a lot. There's a few teams out there that have forked over a lot of money. The Mets obviously have paid a lot of money for Verlander and now and Jose Quintana and Kodai Senga. So that's a lot of money from them. The Rangers paid big money for deGrom. I mean, the Orioles paid Kyle Gibson a lot of money. The Phillies are paying Taijuan Walker a lot of money. The Cubs are paying Jameson Taillon a lot of money. I guess the question is, how many teams out there still need pitching and how many are going to miss out? Like, the Twins are in on Carlos Rodon supposedly, but If they miss out, obviously Cleveland's not going to make a trade with them. So that's kind of a one-off right there. I guess it really depends on who misses out. I mean, who are the big name, the dominoes that still have to fall? You've got Rodon, you've got Chris Bassett are probably 1 and 2 for sure.
Evaldi
After that, Evaldi number 3, and then you've got Sean Manaea is probably number 4.
Or Ross Stripling or Johnny Cueto, Noah Syndergaard, Michael Wacha, Corey Kluber, Zach Greinke, Michael Lorenzen is kind of an interesting buy low guy. It's still a good 10 deep. It's to put it this way. Listen, Spot Rack is not perfect, but they've still got I'd have to do counting, which everyone loves that. But I would, looking at this list, 12 players that they view as in upwards of 15 that would still get $9 million or more in free agency.
It's expensive. The prices for pitching has been very expensive, and that makes you think that, okay, Plesac and Civale and maybe Quantrill, although I don't see Cleveland trading Quantrill. I guess it depends on the offer, but that would automatically make you assume that, okay, the prices on a pitcher that is much cheaper and has club control coming with them, 2 to 3 years, is going to be a valuable commodity in terms of trades, and it's going to, cost a significant prospect return. Even if guys like Plesac and Civale have had issues in their career and they are, maybe number 5 starters, the upside isn't there. I mean, I'll even say Mike Clevenger, if the White Sox can somehow fix him or get him back to what he was, he has more upside than Plesac and Civale. They just have more cost control and club control, so it's different value points. But I guess you got to ask yourself, okay, no, you're not taking Carlos Rodon. You're not taking Plesac or Civale over Rodon. Who are you? Who would you be more interested in pitching for you every 5th day and paying for at the current price between Plesac or Civale in the free agent market? Because obviously Rodon's not one of them. I assume most teams would rather have Evaldi than Plesac or Civale, no matter the price, because of his track record, even though he's 33. Who do we say was Bassett probably number 3, Chris Bassett number 2. Bassett is 34, but a very quality pitcher. And I said number 4 is probably.
I mean, is it Stripling? Is it Syndergaard?
Sean Manaea?
Manaea is the make good contract because it was not good last year.
Yeah. So I feel which of these pitchers we've talked about would you rather have Plesac or Civale over? Would you rather have Plesac or Civale over Stripling? Would you rather have them over Syndergaard? Would you rather have them over Manaea? After that, the market's so empty. So I mean, after that, you have Rich Hill and you have Wacha had a decent year. Kluber, I guess is a big question mark. Would you rather have Kluber at this stage of his career? Would you rather have the cost certainty of Civale and Plesac plus the control? Who are you taking Plesac and Civale over out of the free agent pitchers left, and who is going to be left standing wanting a pitcher? Because I would say I would take Plesac and Civale over Greinke. I would take him over Lyles. I would take him over Wacha. I would take him over Dylan Bundy, Wade Miley, Zach Davies, Chad Kuhl, Chris Archer, Luke Weaver. All those guys I would take Plesac and Civale over. I guess the question is, would you rather sign those guys to what they're going to get, or would you rather fork over any sort of prospect cost to get those pitchers? And I'm so curious if there's really going to be a market for them, because it's going to be a high market and there may not be enough teams out there willing to pay in terms of prospect costs. That's my concern.
No, and personally, I would be in that camp. I'd rather go give Michael Lorenzen $9 million on a make good than pay a prospect cost for Civale or Plesac. And I think Plesac could be an interesting case for a mid-season trade, because a lot of his pickoff move and things he does well might actually bring more value to him. And if he can come out and pitch half of a decent year, and those young pitchers are ready to go, maybe he's more tradable. Civale, I had someone say I was too focused on the postseason. Listen, Civale was a bad year. He had good points, but the first half was a disaster, and then there were 2 to 3 injuries, and he's had injuries every year. I don't even care about the postseason. That doesn't even come at all into. He's been unable to stay healthy, and it was not a good year. They're not consistent. neither of them are consistent pitchers. I mean, if I am running a team, I'm like, thanks, but no thanks. I think you sit there and you wait and you see as this market cools down that you can probably get someone like Kluber for under 10 million. You can get Lorenzen, I bet, for under 10 million. Yeah, if you want to. And the problem is, like, you can't definitively tell me that Civale is going to be better than Kluber next year. We can't state that. We can't state he's going to be better than Lorenzen. These guys have not shown enough in terms of. And even though Plesac's been a little bit better in terms of health, he's also had at least 1 to 2 issues a year health-wise. So I don't think the market's going to develop because I don't think they're good enough to really get the price going. I think your best hope is that, that they pitch well and that maybe you can look for something mid-season with them. But I don't think either of them have a ton of trade value. I don't. Like, when I was talking about, like, maybe Texas, if they really want to bring in James McCann and that kind of fell apart, like, Jonah Heim for Civale would be the going rate on a deal like that. And instead they went out and signed Andrew Haney. Like, they have their pieces in place. I think there are so many pitchers out there that you can wait this market out. I think you can 100% wait this market out and then go get someone that you think has some upside or potential. Because I don't think they're clearly better than any of the names we talked about. That's just the problem. Neither of them have proven they can be consistent.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem. I guess I came into this thinking that they could set a nice value in trades for those guys because teams are going out and paying tons of money for pitching right now. And there's a lot of pitchers out there, and the price, even the price for a Kluber or a Syndergaard is going to come high. And they have their own warts with them at this point in their careers too. So in theory, you think you could set a decent price on Plesac and Civale and offer up, hey, this is a cheaper, controllable option that you can't get on the free agent market. But I think you're 100% right after listening to you. Is you can't. They're not going to pay them. I think teams are proving that they would rather pay for the free agent pitching that's out there rather than trade the prospect cost. I don't think that market is going to be there. Like, I definitely agree that Cleveland could set a high price on that based on those factors and say, okay, well, if you're willing to pay this much money for these kind of pitchers, here's how much you should be willing to pay to get one that you don't have to pay $10 million a year for. And you also get, 2 or 3 years of club control with them. I guess it just doesn't quite translate, because they're not Brandon Woodruffs. They're not Corbin Burns. They're not even Pablo Lopez. Like, even Pablo Lopez probably is going to have more value than those guys. I guess that's what it is. I think you're right. I think it's more maybe it's not teams are willing to pay the money for free agent pitching. Maybe it's these two guys don't have the performance to command a trade value that might be worth making a trade with, because you can't just lean on club control and cost certainty with them, I suppose. So yeah, I'm a little bit concerned that trade market may never develop, but maybe Cleveland has shown they'll trade starters in season before, even if they're winning, if they have an internal upgrade, which we think they should. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, now I have some serious doubts that a trade market for Plesac or Civale is ever going to develop unless they settle on a return, which they almost never do. So there's that.
Yeah, and like I said, the market has been fast and furious, but not too fast and too furious. It's just been fast and furious, but there's still so many guys left, and that's what it comes down to me. There's so much depth on this market, and I think now is a perfect time, speaking of depth on the market, to talk about keeping you and your family and all those in your atmosphere safe with our good friends over at Simply Safe. That is SIMPLISAFE, Simply Safe. At Locked On Guardians, we live. Home should be where you and your family feel safest, especially over the holidays. This season, give yourself and your family the gift of peace and protection with the #1 rated home security system, Simply Safe. As of right now, Simply Safe is offering Locked On Guardians listeners 40% off a new security system. Don't put it off. Here's why I love it. Yes, I do love the fact that U.S. News and World Report has named it the top home security system of 2022, 21, and 2020. Again, I go to that. I go to U.S. News whenever I make any big purchase. They're telling you they're the best. They're always improving and advancing technology. You can now control the whole system from your app with the new Simply Safe version 2. If you don't believe it, go check it out for yourself. Don't miss a chance to save big on my favorite security system. Get 40% off the new system at simplysafe.com/LockedOnMLB today. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnMLB. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Okay, we have discussed pitching. We have discussed what's going on around the league. Do want to give a quick, kind of forgot to mention this at the top of the show. We're going to have one, potentially two guests this week on the show, both pitchers in Cleveland's organization. Can I say that? Maybe I shouldn't state that. But one we already know for is listen to Thursday's show. If you want to get to know Tim Herron, one of the big developmental success stories, a chance to be the greatest, I believe, 29th round pick ever in franchise history. The big lefty who most people weren't looking at when the year began, who went from a starting pitching at Indiana to a big velocity lefty with some wipeout pitches. Before we talk about a few other things, do you want to give your quick report on Tim Herron? You've probably seen him as much as anyone.
Yeah, Herron is a big dude, fun left-handed reliever. I think in 2021 in Lake County, I saw him. He was like, more 92, 95 at best with the fastball, slider, and cutter. And man, he just exploded this year. He came back a lot stronger and sustained new velocity, touching 99 at times. The slider got better, the cutter is better. It's a nice pitch mix. It should be a very nice left-hander that's going to go next to Sanchez at some point in the bullpen. I don't know if he'll start the year in the pen. They should have an open spot for him to compete for. But yeah, definitely excited for him. He is a big kid and has a lot of heat from the left side, so that should be fun to watch for.
Yeah, I love the idea of what I brought up before of putting him in the Henches role and allowing you to move Henches into that back end role. We're also going to talk about relievers soon. I'm going to do a little bit of foreshadowing here in segment 3, and then I know Justin has some really interesting information, something that totally ran counter to some of what I thought. But we, of course, with the way both of us are, prospects will be coming. We are probably going to draft prospect teams at some point and then let people judge teams, and we will then sit there and compete and talk about that. And we're also debating in terms of future content, doing like a 64 style tournament, all-time Guardians, maybe Guardians the last 20 years. Maybe like a really hard one to do, but an interesting one might be like hyped prospects. So like, you could talk about the Adam Millers versus, some of the other guys. That'd be an interesting but hard one to pull off. So, sometimes our best thoughts come from you, Alton, if you're listening. I mean, last year you helped drive this show, I think, for most of December with the Why Prospects Fail, where I literally went through every top 100 list that had a Guardians prospect in it and then discussed why they didn't work out. So sometimes we get some great ideas from the fans as well. But tomorrow's show, depending on news, and then the one big news of the day. The Guardians are still interested in Sean Murphy, according to Ken Rosenthal. I know people are tired of Murphy talk. The Guardians were not on his list of Christian Vazquez teams. So it is interesting if Vazquez doesn't work out. If Vazquez does not appear like he's going to work out. If the Murphy situation doesn't come together, what their rebound's going to be. Because it feels like they are going to get something. Whether it's Zunino, Hedges, Narvaez, we'll see. But now that I've spoken about all of that jive, Justin, tell them about the thing that I was most definitely wrong about heading into this evening.
Well, good thing there are people out there that are good at numbers and do the numbers on these things. Certainly wasn't me. I hate to say this. People are all like, oh, I like to trust my gut. I like to trust my eyes. And humans are very flawed creatures. We all are. I'm definitely flawed. We all have flaws. Our eyes deceive us. There are certain things we just can't remember because we have so much information spewing into our heads every day. We can only retain so much. I wouldn't have even guessed this either, but Cleveland this year, Jeff, I told you before, this surprised you. Third best this past season in challenge success rate, thanks to Josh Handler, who apparently has done some work in the past for a couple major league teams and is also a DePaul graduate. I like DePaul. My cousin went to DePaul, taught stats there. But the Guardians were third this year in most successful challenges at 61%. The only teams ahead of them were the Cardinals at 62, it looks like, maybe 63. Those are the direct numbers on there, but he has a chart. And then the Mets at 79%. So only 3 teams better than the Guardians this season in successful challenges of plays. So, yeah. I don't know if I really had a strong thought one way or the other on how they did this year. I definitely feel like they always came out in the green, the black. I don't know. I guess to borrow a marketing term, they always came out ahead. They always came out ahead. I feel like they were better than 50-50, but the numbers confirm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I felt like it didn't always go well, but that's why I don't know. It's the hot take on it.
I think it's like kickers and closers. I think it's like kickers and closers. You always remember the misses. You remember the blown saves. Like, look at Brian Shaw for years. People hated Brian Shaw for years and always wanted to bring up the failures, but Brian Shaw often had an ERA in the low 3s, which says he was better more often than he wasn't good. And there's a reason the Rockies, he's as bad of a franchise as the Rockies are. They paid him all that money because he had past success, because Major League Free Agency is broken. But yeah, people remember the misses. They remember the blown saves. They don't remember 99% of the good things that happen. That's just it's human bias. Unfortunately, we are very biased creatures, and that's one of those unfortunate things. We tend to see the bad more than the good.
So I'm going to cut off the audio podcast here just because I don't want us to run over too long. Remember, you can go over to YouTube. I just got a trade question in my DMs that I have to throw Justin's way because he's going to appreciate this. So you can join us on YouTube, get a bonus segment here, and make sure to check that out. So I'm going to do the ending as I do for the audio, which is thank you for tuning in. Remember to rate, subscribe, rate, and review. Our YouTube total is up to 1,070. Thank you all for joining, and we'll end it the way we always do. Go Guardians, go. And okay, so the Oakland, someone I know who writes about Oakland asked me if the Guardians would do George Valera, Tanner Bybee, Cody Morris, and Will Brennan.
For Sean Murphy?
Yes.
Oh my, that's just
like
hitting them over the head with a hammer.
I'm like,
wow.
I'm like, nay, that's not close to what they would move off of. It was like, my general take was he goes, yay or nay? I go, nay. And I go, honestly, they're not moving Bybee or Valera. If you read the reports from the local media people, there are those who like Brennan more than Valera, and Morris is like not a throwaway guy. Like, yeah, that's not happening. I mean, you can make a case that's 4 top 10 guys. That doesn't happen anymore.
No, that would be like the Bartolo Colon deal, right? Like, geez, and those guys were
not even. It's even it's worse.
It's even worse.
Those guys were in low A.
Yeah, those guys were so far away when that trade happened.
These guys are all close.
That's really hitting the hammer over the head. Look, I've been discussing this back and forth with some friends, other people too, and other people on Twitter who know prospects and know baseball very well. Some of the trade proposals people have out there don't hurt enough. Like, people have to understand that these trades have to hurt. If you sit there and say, I'm okay giving up, these 3 guys, then the Oakland's not going to be okay with it, because it has to hurt. Like, both teams have to have some level of, man, that was a painful trade, but we think it was worth it in the end. If both teams don't feel something that they're giving up, they're getting a tough deal. Most of the time, these trades have to, both teams want to feel like they're getting a win, right? Like, you don't have to say, well, this team ripped off the other team. Like, the good trades are always, both teams got what they wanted in the end. But I think both teams end up feeling it too, and people they are trading away. And with Cleveland, you just see all those trade proposals where people are like, yeah, I'd be okay doing this, this, and this. Well, if it doesn't hurt to trade, then it probably doesn't work for the other team, because they want to feel like they got a lot out of you. And that's ripping the heart out, though, right there. I mean, like you said, there are some people in the organization who prefer Brennan to Valera. I myself, not part of the organization, but I prefer Brennan to Valera, I'll be honest. I asked you the other day about how I rank my outfielders and how I had them in a different order than most people right now. They would trade probably one of Brennan or Valera, although reports suggest they have been reluctant to trade Valera, but I wonder how much of that is posturing, right? Because
Yeah.
oh, we really don't want to trade Valera. We don't want to trade him. Like that's a guy we're not looking to give up, but really they are. And yeah, I think by all accounts they're going to clutch Bybee very tightly. I could see them giving up Morris in the deal. I could see that happening. But yeah, all 4-1. That's a bit much. I would be kind of surprised if that happens.
No, agreed. I just got that. I'm like, I go, yeah, I get it because they're all close pieces, but like those deals, like I said, they don't even happen. And if you go back to the Cologne deal, Sizemore was not Sizemore. You know, he was Cliff Lee was not Cliff Lee. It was Phillips and then Flyers. Like that deal is, and again, if we go back to just the Olsen deal, which Murphy has more control, so he's more valuable, but it's like
and positional importance too.
But it's like they got one top 10 prospect, one major league failed prospect who had yet to show, who was a former like top 10 overall in base, like, who's the equivalent of Ahmed Rosario. Like at the time, Christian Pache had about what Ahmed Rosario had when he came over in the Lindor deal. That former top prospect who really hadn't performed, but you're betting on athletic traits. But Ahmed might have had more value because at least 2 years ago he'd had a good year. Pache had been terrible every chance he'd gotten.
And there were always questions about the bat. I would say Rosario always had the higher prospect pedigree. People were pretty sure he was going to be an all-star shortstop. Like, I don't think anybody's ever said Pache was going to be an all-star. People thought he's going to be he
was a top 10 prospect in baseball, which to me
people really thought the bat was going to come along that much.
Yeah, I mean, they thought the power would be there.
I feel like there were less questions about Rosario's bat than there were Pache's.
Pache was like I said, he was as big a prospect as they come. If I were to look at his minor league data, he was 7th in Baseball America's ranks before the 2021 season. He was Major League Baseball 2 years in a row, 12th and 13th. But those were like pre-2021. So this was, he before last season, Baseball America still had him 84th. So, I mean, he still had value, but he was down. Estevez was not a top 10 guy. Interesting, but not a top 10 guy. And Cusick was a first rounder who hadn't, there were some people who really didn't like him. Like, if I'm being honest, there were some people, like I was not as high on him as others, but he was not a top 100 guy. And this is my long way of saying that's like 2 top 100 guys and then 2 like that. And this isn't to knock the dude that sent it to me. Like, if he listens, like, I really appreciate him and I think very highly of him. But that feels like a list that you're making looking at the MLB top prospects list, which again, those dudes have an impossible job who do that. But where they have Brennan on that list is not representation of where he is, where some of those other guys like Cody Morris was really, really good. Like, you can make a case based on what Cody Morris showed when he got called up that he should be in this rotation over Civale or Plesac because the upside is higher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just that's a health risk. No, I mean, it's refreshing to see a trade proposal that doesn't try to throw in Owen Miller and Miles Straw and Tanner Burns and like all and other parts of the roster that we just give up everybody who's like 37 through 40 on the roster and that'll quantity equals quality. So it's refreshing to see a trade in the other way for sure. And then you're talking about Pache and other guys like that. This is why I think you're right when you say Cleveland won't trade Bybee or Espino or Williams, because guess what? It is much easier to feel what's going to translate from pitching from the minors to the majors than it is hitting. That's why they don't want to trade in the big 3 pitchers, because of guys like Pache, and that's why Oakland is wanting those guys too, because they feel like it's easier to see the correlation of those guys succeeding in the majors with their stuff as a pitcher versus whatever hitters you get, because hitters are still hard to predict. As much as we say there's no such thing as a pitching prospect, I think when you say that, you're absolutely right. And I think that's the whole up to this deal. Because look, if this trade could have been done without Bybee, Espino, or Williams, it probably would have been done by now, honestly. And I think this is going to be a long stalemate. There's not a lot of options left to where Murphy can go. I think it's going to be, we could be looking at another month there. Maybe this isn't, I don't know. I guess it depends on the catching market too. I guess Like there was a statement a couple weeks ago that said, or a couple days ago that said, Cleveland's moving closer to a resolution on catching. I wonder if that statement was more, we're going to go in a different direction if you decide not to trade Sean Murphy. But
well, remember, like Murphy was supposedly, by like all the reports, like he's going to be traded in the next few days. That was a week ago. It's going to lead off.
Clearly, we know who that better. We know who wanted people to feel that way.
And
we know who people wanted to feel that.
I know, but what's also interesting to me with all of this is like, here's the thing, like, it is funny when I'm sitting there on Friday morning or Thursday morning being like, listen, if that's what the Oakland Athletics asked St. Louis for, then I'm saying goodbye. Murphy's going to stay in A. But all the mental gymnastics from Oakland fans to be like, no, all these teams have needs. Like the Twins will trade for him. I'm like, I know Ryan Jeffers hasn't delivered yet, but they're not going to trade their whole farm system for him.
And they don't have a great farm system to begin with.
No, I mean, they moved a lot of their kind of, the Berrios trade helped them get some pieces, but like, no, they don't have, it's like Brooks Lee is interesting. I really love their draft from a year ago, but they're not going to move heaven. Like if they're going to move heaven and earth, it feels like they were talking about pitching, right? Like there were some talks for them with Pablo Lopez. Like that's not where they're going. They're supposedly in on the Vazquez sweepstakes, which makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Who else did someone bring up to me? It's like the Diamondbacks. I don't think the Diamondbacks are going to strip mine their system after they build it up, unless you're settling for like Alec Thomas and as the centerpiece, which is, they probably move on from him right now with some other pieces. But there is a non-zero chance that Alec Thomas is just Christian Pache all over again. Like there is a chance of that. I just don't see that many teams like legitimately who are going to be on the market for him. Yes, the Rays. Yes, they can be on the market for anyone. Could the Red Sox? If they want to sell the top of their system, but they're a disaster right now.
By the way, I know I want to point out. I know you always sometimes do this for me. I'm gonna do it for myself today.
Yeah.
After we got recording on Thursday, I said we were talking about the Padres and all this money they were throwing around. I said at some point someone's gonna take the Padres' money. Someone finally took the Padres' money. That was crazy when that happened. Not saying. Yeah, it wasn't crazy predicting that, but it was crazy the way it went down.
I thought they were going to end up with Dansby. Now I wonder if he ends up with the Dodgers, but it's going to be interesting to see how we assume the Giants are going to pay somebody. We'll have to see. It sounds like the Padres are still out there spending, but it's like I said, just looking at this catching market, it's like if it's I can't see Boston trading like the three assets they have.
Should we count the Padres out on the Murphy sweepstakes? I feel like you never can.
But what are they gonna? Is Dylan Jackson Merrill and Dylan Lesko both in like A-ball going to do that deal for them? Like, who's going to be the pieces?
Well, they can't give Oakland Fernando Tatis.
No,
they can't because Oakland can't take on Fernando Tatis. But I don't know.
Like they've kind of stripped their system bare. I don't feel like they have the pieces. It feels like the same thing with Houston. Like. What is, like I liked parts of Houston's draft a year ago, but like still, it's like Drew Gilbert got hurt at the end of last year. Who are you giving them? Because most Houston fans don't want to trade Hunter Brown because they don't have pitching depth. And again, like that's kind of an issue. Like Hunter Brown is probably their sixth starter if the season began today, if not their fifth. So it's like it's not going to be them. Besides, they're very unlikely to trade in division. Mm-hmm. You go to the Central, Cleveland, Chicago. Again, what does Chicago have to trade? Not much. The Twins seem to have other interests. The only team that could be kind of interesting that I thought would be if Milwaukee got involved. And could there be some kind of ridiculous 3-teamer? Or could there be but it still feels like you don't make that trade they made for Jess Winker unless you're going to kind of run it back and try to contend. And then trading from their prospects, they're not trading Churio. Weimer and Terang doesn't get you close enough. That's just not good enough. So like their second and third pieces probably aren't enough to package. So I don't know. I like Frelick. I got to look at actually how he performed before I comment fully on him. But he was awesome last year. He's very much an Oakland type of guy. But it's like Frelick, Weimer, and Terang. Like, where's the pitching coming from? Like, and do they have a pitcher that can help them get that across? I don't think their top.
No, because they need pitching prospects.
Yeah. So it's like
it really does feel like Tampa Bay and Cleveland. I don't know. I guess I wouldn't count the Padres out because there was talk about them getting involved in the Christian Vazquez market too. So
yeah, I just feel like it's the same thing I said. The Padres feel like Houston or Boston to me, where it makes sense on paper, but it's like, how do you actually make that deal occur? I don't know. Like, what was it that I don't know, someone thought that like one of the mental gymnastics I got was that the minute that the Astros would flip one of their starters to get prospects to then get Sean Murphy, which would then leave them even weaker in their rotation. It's like, no, like then how do you fill that need? It's if you're having to do mental gymnastics, I just don't see a pathway to success. And we'll see what happens with Murphy. And I think honestly, they've kind of set themselves up that they're not going to move. They're not going to budge. So if that's Oakland's ask, then they thought, by all reports, I can't remember if it was Zach or if it was Andre Knott who tweeted at points that they thought they had a done deal at the deadline for Murphy.
I thought that was something else for the Reds deal. I thought that was the Molly
deal. Okay, maybe that's what it was. But
Molly and Drury, I thought is what it was.
I had heard, or maybe I read somewhere that they thought that they were basically, and maybe it's just something I read, that they thought they were in agreement on something. And then I don't know if Oakland tried to get more or tried to come back to it. But I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if this trade is an acrimonious situation, which then makes it less likely to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the harder negotiations get, the more teams are turned off and wanting to do it. I was just going to ask you, too, to try to wrap this up.
Yeah.
True or false, the longer this takes, the better it is for Cleveland, because that means they're not caving and Oakland eventually will make a deal, or maybe it's the other way around. Like you just said, maybe the harder this negotiation becomes, the more turned off the teams are going to be from wanting to make a deal.
I mean, the longer it goes, I think it definitely benefits them. It's like losing St. Louis definitely had to take the wind out of Oakland sails. That had to hurt when they saw that was happening. Like you're kind of hoping, I think if you're Oakland, you're hoping Contreras signs with the Astros. Like that's one of those situations where that's what you're hoping for, or that he signs with San Diego or something like that. Not that he goes from one of the teams that could actually trade for Sean Murphy. But I also kind of think like if a deal was going to get done, it kind of would have happened. And I think if you are Cleveland, they are clearly not comfortable with the idea of Bo Naylor starting the season as their everyday catcher. So they're going to rotate to something else because you also can't sit and wait with catching. That market will disappear on you. And they don't want to be, they don't want to be in this game of musical chairs where they don't have a catcher. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, okay, this isn't progressing. We'll look at Zunino. We'll look at, Narvaez as a rental. We'll bring Hedges back. It was kind of funny on the Rosenthal piece where it's like listing all the catchers available and it's reaching down to guys like Kevin Plawecki and Roberto Perez. It is a weak market, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they tried to like rotate into, and make a lesser trade of some sort. Like, Colorado with, Elias Diaz was terrible last year, but he still would have been, I believe, better than what he had been on par with what Cleveland had. But like the year before that, he had been a really good defender and something like that. I wouldn't be shocked to see them make a lesser deal to get a catcher, especially if they really believe in Naylor. And it's like, hey, we want him to get a little more seasoning. And then like, we feel like mid-season, we got a guy. Like maybe they decide like it isn't worth the cost because right now the cost is inflated.
Yeah. Would you go after a guy like, I don't know, maybe the Dodgers, Austin Barnes, like he's a backup, just go after him as a stopgap. And because the Dodgers seem like they're not going to sign anybody because of the whole Trevor Bauer situation right now. And
you're making Hiram very happy with that.
Austin Barnes. Oh boy. I mean, I'm just saying
it's a favorite of his.
Something that could make sense. I don't know, just as a short-term stopgap.
If they're really willing to move him, it feels like he is very comfortable there and like they signed that deal for a reason. But like, if they're willing to trade him, I mean, absolutely, I go for Barnes. I mean, he's been successful in that role. He's been a solid defender and a solid bat, like a relatively cheap contract. If you can, if they need like
Civale for Barnes, would that work? You think?
Do they need the pitching? What is their?
Well, they've lost some pitching. I know they've got guys that could come up. I mean, right now their projected 5 is Kershaw, Julio Urias, Gonsolin, May, and Pepio. And then they've also got, obviously, Walker Buehler probably won't be back until late in the season, if at all. And then you've got Bobby Miller, who I personally love, who's not in the 40 yet, by the way. And you've got Grove and Jackson. So they could use a guy, for the year, I suppose.
Or could that be a relief place? Like, is that a place where you could flip a reliever for him? Like, I mean, for that, and they got guys like, Bickford and, Yancy Almonte was a great story, but it's like that bullpen disappointed him a bit in the postseason. Maybe they
did just sign Shelby Miller
to a non-roster invitee, right? Isn't he?
No, he got a major league deal.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. It's interesting. I think you're right. I think that we will see them. I don't know. I think they'll have a catching resolution by the end of the month. That's just pure speculation and guess.
Yeah.
Just because you said they don't want to be left without a dance partner when the music stops. But I guess they're going to keep staring Oakland in the face until Oakland either gives in or they're like, all right, that's it. We're going to pivot and have other conversations. They're probably already having other conversations. Truthfully.
Yeah, I think
it's going to depend on when the other guys decide to make their decision.
Yeah, I think they're not going to judge on that price, and they're not going to switch things, and it's just going to be what it is. And for me, like, in some ways it gets better, but every day like a deal doesn't happen, I'm kind of like, Murphy isn't going to happen, because basically we're at a point where the bidders are who they're going to be. Everything is set up and in place. Yeah, technically other teams could go away, but it doesn't seem like Cleveland or Oakland are in on Vazquez. That's really the only other major player. I mean, one could make a case, even if Cleveland were to go and add Zunino, they could still add Murphy, because who knows how much Zunino will be able to like hold up to a 100-game season. Like, it could be a dual tandem. So I think we're just kind of in the holding pattern. I honestly feels like I don't think a deal's. If I were to place a bet right now on if a deal happened or if it didn't happen, I'd say Sean Murphy is not going to be a Guardian.
I'm going to go and say the opposite. I'll say yes. I'm going to say that the drop off, and anything could happen. I mean, the winter meetings, obviously there's more attention posted on this stuff, and it tends to drop off after, which is, terrible for baseball. That's another discussion to have. But the fact that the non-Rosenthal and Passan tweets about Murphy have started to disappear, so-and-so is in a trade discussion about this team, or so-and-so, is interested in this player or whatever, that's when it relates to Sean Murphy. Those tweets have stopped for the time being. That, to me, says that's a good thing for Cleveland. If you're seeing Oakland, leak things to Mark Feinsand or John Morosi or whoever else, and they're tweeting, here's the interest in this. Like, Kevin Rosenthal just has one sentence about it in his latest column. It's not speculation. It's just quick, news hitting thing. I don't think Rosenthal anymore gets pulled into that stuff. So I'm going to say the fact that things are a little bit quiet right now is a good sign for Cleveland, because that's generally when they do finally strike. It's not a whole lot of smoke before it happens. It usually just goes off like a bomb.
I think they are the ultimate pig-headed franchise, and they're not going to budge. And if Oakland's trying to make them budge, you're relying on Oakland to be the team who gives in. And these two teams have been debating this for half a year now without any resolution, which makes me think no resolution is coming. There's a better chance of them buying low on a Danny Jansen and hoping, that his data rebounds to the 2021 data. That's where I more and more feel, but that's just my 2 cents at this point in time.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know. Like I said, I feel like they end up doing better when things are quieter. That usually is a better sign, but that could all be based on nothing, just based on past experience. That could be just coincidence. Hard to say. I keep saying it's probably, if it's going to be a while, I don't know if they'll go to January with it, but it could be a while, which me saying that now means it'll happen tomorrow. But
well, now that I've said it's not happening,
it's going to happen.
But
it's going to happen. Yeah, tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah.
The other thing too, sometimes discussions happen over a long period of time, because look, they had discussions about Miles Straw with Houston a year prior to getting him. So sometimes these things take a while, right? And the discussions you're having a certain period of time maybe don't end up being fruitful, but they serve as a foundation for your conversations in the future, and things could change, right? So as long as they stay in communication, the groundwork is laid, and they have some sort of mutual understanding, you can always revisit these discussions and continue to work off of them. I think there's a possibility. Those things do take time sometimes. So the work you put in to make a trade, early on, maybe pays off a little bit longer down the road. Who knows? If just because it didn't happen over last season or whatever doesn't mean it can't happen now. I think as long as they are working off of that groundwork and they continue to have communication, respect, I think there's a possibility that they could build towards it. It's just a slow build.
See, I would just argue like Straw is easier because it's a lesser asset, whereas Murphy being a big asset with big costs, if they've already said we're not moving these guys, I mean, we can sit here and talk ourselves in circles all day, but it just feels like Cleveland's like, I'm not trading these pitchers and I'm not trading these guys. If you're willing to take, like, Shane Langoliers, it should be pointed out, wasn't like a top prospect last year. Like going into the season, if I were to pull it up, like he wasn't like he was maybe like 58th or something like that. Like he wasn't like cream of the crop. So again, I know it's just similar stuff, but like what's being reported right now that Oakland wants does not match up. And I think it's inflating some of these. Like, yeah, he was 54th at Baseball America and 59th at MLB and 75th at Prospectus. Like he was not a top 50 prospect. They didn't get one top 50 prospect in that deal. So I don't know. I'm curious to see and again, Murphy has more value, more control, better position, not as good of a hitter. There's a balancing act to it, but I mean, he definitely has more value, but I'm very curious when the overall cost seems to be like twice what Olsen got. So,
yeah, I didn't mean it to be like a 1-to-1 translation. No. I just kind of meant like discussion wise, I think that there's a possibility that could be how it plays out is all.
Yeah. But we're at almost an hour, so I think we should put a fork in it, call it an evening. Want to thank you all for listening, rating and reviewing, downloading. It helps. Like I said, thank you to everyone who helps with the monetization. We are getting that all in order. On a long show like this, it's 3. I think our rule is going to be 3, maybe 4, because this is almost an hour. But other than that, you won't see anything worse than that. Thank you all for listening, and go Guardians, go.